Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. We're at Main Street USA, and in this series we are following the book From Sketch to Reality, taking an in-depth behind-the-scenes look at the creation of Disneyland Paris.
Or like it was formerly known, Euro Disney. We're gonna have a look at Main Street USA. This Main Street USA was specifically made with European audience in mind and would have almost looked completely different.
As you emerge from the Disneyland Hotel, you're met with the iconic Euro Disney Railroad Station. This is the only remnant left, the old name. As you can see, the letters EDRR everywhere in the station.
But later, a bit more on the trains. For now, we're gonna have a look at Main Street itself. Main Street, as you know it today, is a nostalgic look on an old American town, especially like the ones that Walt remembered back from in Missouri. Imagineers weren't sure that this was going to work for European audiences, so they went to work and came up with some drastically different ideas for Disneyland Europe.
Just imagine Main Street USA set in Hollywood in the 1920s. Through research, they found that Europe was fascinated by the roaring 20s, jazz, gangsters, the industrial age. So this version of Main Street would have been filled with Art Deco design, just like the cities Chicago and New York.
Ideas like a Grand Circle Vision Cinema came already to their minds, and if you don't know what that was, it was almost like magic technology back in the time, where they mounted a bunch of cameras 360 and you had a 360 view of everything. Or like billboards that were animated that are still actually in Main Street. Beautiful 1920 cars driving up on the street. And what of course couldn't be missing was a nice speakeasy.
In the end, they were questioning whether they had to reinvent Main Street USA for the European audience. So they went to none other than Herb Raymond. He drew up the original plans for Main Street USA under Walt's personal supervision. So they went to Herb and they asked him, draw us the spirit of Main Street USA.
What did Herb drew up? The essence of Main Street for him was tranquility, lights filling the air, and honestly, just a welcoming attitude. Cars were all the rage back then, so the beautiful Main Street vehicles filling the street was plenty enough for this one.
Imagineers quickly realized that this was a true timeless concept, so they started designing our Euro Disney Main Street.
Yet a more modernized Main Street never left their minds. So horse-drawn carriages made way for motorized vehicles, and the animated billboards that once graced Times Square even made their way into Main Street. Like for example on this building, where you can still find a teacup blowing smoke.
Main Street Motors used to sell 3 actual 1900 model cars and 1 motorcycle. They were priced around $100,000 in modern day prices, so obviously they never sold. So they changed it into a merch shop. But if you actually did buy one, you could drive it off the lot down to Main Street.
That would have been so freakingly cool. Let's follow us to the beginning of Main Street.
Welcome to Plaza Garden Restaurant. You might be a bit confused here as we are at the end of Main Street, but Walt was a storyteller, and even if the people did not know it, there was always a story to keep everything together.
So, what is the story of Main Street? The restaurant was built in 1861 at the edge of a town, facing a great park. This can all be seen in the beautiful murals inside the restaurant. Over the decades, the railroad brought more people and prosperity to the town. And so, Main Street came to life. Growing next to the plaza, the richness and the time explains how grand and beautiful the decorations of the restaurants are. Made from the best materials like marbles from Italy and gold-leafed wallpaper. Trains always held a special place in Walt's heart. His first job was selling candy and newspapers on a train in Kansas City. Years later, he built a miniature railway in his garden. And that helped inspire the creation of Disneyland California. This had and always will be an important part of Disneylands around the world. For the trains here in Disneyland Paris, Imagineers visited the Henry Ford and Greenfield Village museums in Michigan and the California Railroad Museum in Sacramento. Details like the authentic whistles, serial numbers on the sides of the trains will be appreciated by every train enthusiast. But insiders may also recognize the birth dates of several Imagineers in those serial numbers. Disneyland Paris has 4 trains. The 3 originals that opened with the park, G. Washington, CK Holiday, and WF Cody. After the park opened, a 4th train was added named Eureka, due to the popularity of the attraction. Now, all these trains have their own reason why and how they got their name, but that is maybe a story for another time. Let us know in the comments if you want to hear it. For now, we are going to enjoy the ride and see you back on Main Street. But if you're wondering what you can see along the ride, at some point you will drive into the Grand Canyon. Here you will find beautiful hand-painted murals by Frank Armitage, and maybe you will even see a pirate. Great attention of detail was given to the park, not only the ones you see, but also the ones you hear. The music was carefully curated, and themes like From Hello Dolly and Oklahoma were added to already Disney classics. Did you even know there are 2 versions of this soundtrack? One for the morning, which is a bit more relaxing, and one for the evening that gives excitement to every guest. The soundtracks of this park were so effective that even Disney World and the original Disneyland in California, Anaheim, took over the soundtrack to play on their Main Street.
Speaking of the original Disneyland, did you know that the transportation company behind us has a silhouette of the castle itself? Just like this gazebo standing behind us, which was Walt's original plan for the first Main Street in Anaheim. His fear was that the gazebo would take away from Main Street and the castle, but they did put it here for the exact same purpose, that when you walk through Main Street, you get the full excitement of seeing the castle come closer. At Disneyland Paris, there are 2 unique walkways that you can find right behind Main Street. These were designed for the commonly bad weather here in Europe. The first concept of an arcade can also be traced back to 18th century France, where the first arcade appeared in the Palais Royal in Paris.
Starting with the Liberty Arcade right behind us. This is the arcade you can find when you're entering the park on your left. This arcade is meant to be the link between France and the United States and tells the story of the Statue of Liberty. Eddie Soto said in an interview that this arcade should represent the enthusiasm between France and the United States working together, getting this great park up. It is also no coincidence that this arcade ends up in Frontierland, the old American West. In this arcade, you can find murals painted by Jim Michelson, and these were inspired by the Universal exhibition in 1876. Eddie and the team spent hours preparing and looking at a reconstruction at the Smithsonian. Over on the other side, you will find Discovery Arcade. Here you can find influences from Leonardo da Vinci and, of course, if you know Discoveryland, Jules Verne. Here you can find 52 patents that were, of course, patented by the Patent Office. Now let me explain. In 1790, George Washington created this Patent Office, part of the act that he signed that was called Act of the Useful Arts. The office back in the day received 175,000 patents when it opened, this including some patents of the very famous Edison, Heinz and Westinghouse. And just fun fact, of those 175,000 prototypes, every single one worked. Because to be able to get a patent, your prototype needed to be 100% functional.
In 1907, Congress decided that there were too many of them, so they decided to either sell, destroy, or give away these patents. 70 years later, millionaire Cliff Peterson collected over 40,000 of these prototypes, and a few of them, or a lot of them, can be found here at Discovery Arcade. What you can also find in Discovery Arcade are the posters of some of the most famous American cities, of what they would have looked like in the future, or so they thought. So you can find futuristic New York, San Francisco,
Baltimore, Chicago.
So check them out.
Main Street is made up of 580,000 bricks, and these bricks are laid out in a similar fashion that they would lay out bricks back in the day in New York City and Chicago. This was actually done because Elias Disney, the father of Walt Disney, was a carpenter by heart. He also has some seal here in Disneyland Paris that we will find for you and will show you because the internet doesn't. And then I will give it over to Ulrike, who's gonna tell us some more about these things.
So apparently there are 3 manholes that were donated by cities in America. So we already found Chicago. We found the one from Baltimore. We're still looking for the one from New York. We've asked around everywhere already, but nobody seems to know where it is. So we might even be able to show it, or it's gonna be a mystery forever. And they also replicated a 4th one from Colorado that we found on Eddie Soto's blog himself, that we also found here. So, yeah.
Update on the manhole.
So we went to guest relations in the city hall and asked them, because there's somebody there who does the VIP tours himself, but they were unable to find it. They are very excited to find it themselves. So we made a plan with them that in the next few months that we're gonna check in with them to see if they found it themselves.
So, welcome. It's another morning for us and we have a little update about the manhole cover situation. Ulrike took a long shot and mailed the old senior vice president of Concept, Eddie Soto. And he replied within an hour.
We found his blog post, website, and there was a contact form. So I was like, let's just send him a question because we can't find it. And he replied like within the hour. I have an email of Eddie Soto himself in my mailbox, which I'm never gonna delete.
But so that is why we're here at the end of the Discovery Arcade, because behind us, right there, is the manhole.
The New York manhole.
The New York manhole.
That we missed.
For all cast members watching, this is where it is.
The inhabitants of Main Street are not only fictional. Some are a reference to the Imagineers who created this place, which was a tradition that Walt started in 1955. The others that you can find are also a reference to Walt's childhood.
As the then CEO of the Walt Disney Company, Michael Eisner, and the second in command, Frank Welsh, they were portrayed as the band leaders from the Main Street Band on the Gazette building.
Here, Tony Baxter and Mary Sklar are the editors-in-chief of this Main Street Gazette. At the dentist office, you can see that Eddie Soto, Jeff Burke, Chris Dietz, Tom Morris, and Tim Delaney are mentioned as dentist apprentices. If you listen closely, you can even hear Eddie himself. In the book, they reference this as it felt like they were pulling teeth when they tried to get their ideas out of them, so they put them on the dentist office.
You look good with 3 nostrils.
And here is my personal favorite, Dr. Sherwood. This is an old war veteran that used to tell stories to Walt. This was also the first person to ever commission a piece of art of Walt himself. Last but not least, and we are recording this afterwards because unfortunately it was a bit too busy at Main Street. What are the buildings hiding inside? Well, once again, the European mindset was turned on. For Main Street alone, more than 10,000 period pieces and accessories were gathered from all around the world. Many people think that these are made for the park, but that could not be further from the truth. Authenticity was at the forefront of creating this park. Imagineers decided early on that every building should have its distinct interior. Let's go and have a look inside, shall we? Casey's Corner. Imagineers wanted to bring something more unknown to Europe, as American culture then was more or less a portrait of Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, and leather jackets. So baseball was a no-brainer. Based on the refreshment corner in Disneyland, the concept was beefed up, representing and selling American fast food, hot dogs and apple pie. The name Casey came from the poem Casey and the Bat by Ernest L. The year that appears on the building, 1888, is the year the poem was released. The close partnership with the Coca-Cola company is very much noticeable here, especially for this location. Coca-Cola gave access to the archives and permission to recreate stained glass chandeliers only found in this form in the park, not to get confused with the very much alike looking ones at Disneyland.
For a little lightning round, we have the Cable Car Bake Shop and the Market House Deli. Both take heavy inspiration from San Francisco and New York. In the deli, you can also find a phone of the time with the flashing lights on, like somebody has been put on hold. Next up, Boardwalk Candy Palace. This iconic candy store recently got refurbished, and some of its original artwork has been restored. This shop was based in Atlantic City and New Jersey, but was famous for everything sweet. Columns here were not made of marble, but instead of sweet treats. These gave him a lot of trouble, as they were all one by one placed and needed to be unwrapped piece by piece. They then noticed that some of them were too dark to let the light through, so just a couple of days before the park opened, they spent the night getting all of the opaque sweets out of the columns. While they were doing this, they realized there were not enough of the transparent sweets, so if you look and search for them, you can still find some of the opaque ones in the columns. The shop is also situated in a building called Tilliou. This is a reference to the man who created the famous Coney Island amusement park in New York.
As Walt Disney himself famously said, Disneyland will never be complete. It will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world. Unfortunately, this happened also with one of the favorite shops of ours, the Town Square Photography. This one was replaced by another merch shop. Why was it so important? The photography was another important technology of that time period. George Eastham, who founded Kodak, didn't invent photography, but made the development of photos way easier. There are more than hundreds of cameras that were found in the shop and contain probably the most accessories of any other shop. Some of the cameras dated back to the 1890s and the 1920s, and were very rare. To create the lived-in environment that the shop had, Eddie became the shop owner for hours. Played with pencils, took photos, put them all over the place, and even did some accounting.
Then there is the big one, the Emporium. Here the Imagineers wanted to create a large store like you would see at the beginning of the 19th century. If you stand here at the central cash register and look up, you will see Mickey shaped in cast iron all around the windows. You will also see little mechanical baskets that were used 100 years ago. This was when the counter staff was not allowed to handle money. They had to put the money into the baskets, send it off to the accounting's room. There they would do the calculations and send it back so the change could be given to the customer.
In the middle of all the shopping that goes on in the Emporium, you can find a quiet corner either near the store or via a side street. Here you will find the lovely Dapper Dan's haircuts. This Victorian-inspired barber shop is filled with antiques. One of them may be one of the rarest items that they hold, a steam heater that used to be warming up towels. Imagineers found a model in a catalog of Sears and Roebuck but couldn't not locate one of the devices anywhere. They were about to give up until Betham Brody had a stroke of luck on a stormy night. While seeking shelter in a restaurant, he spotted the steam heater in the back of one of the rooms. Upon close inspection, it was exactly the model they were looking for. There is also a bit of a collection of shaving mugs in the barber shop from the 1910s. This was the norm, everyone brought their own shaving cup. These often depict the job occupation of the man that did so. So for example, a firefighter would have a helmet on his mug, a sheriff a star, etc.
Last but definitely not least, we have Walt's, an American restaurant. This place is an homage to the man himself in Disneyland Paris. The old memorabilia can be found throughout the whole restaurant. In the lobby alone, you can find photos of Walt and Lily, his wife, photos of the town in Missouri that inspired Main Street, 2 Oscars and a mechanical bird in a car, that it is a reminiscence of the antique mechanical feathered friend that helped inspire Walt's first audio animatronic. The rooms upstairs are divided into several themes. Those are all linked to the lands of the park, but there's also one room that is dedicated to Walt's lifelong partner Lily. In the restaurant itself, you can find some of Walt's favorite dishes, such as the Waldorf salad. We can't talk about Main Street without mentioning the beautiful parades that roll down the street. Classics like the Christmas parade or the Halloween parade.
With that said, we will close the chapter here. If you like this series to continue, hit the like button and subscribe, as this would help us a lot. We do not make any cent of this series. Quite the contrary, coming to Disneyland is, as you know, pretty expensive. We will see you again, and with that one, until our next adventure.